All right. I think that's enough time for stragglers. This will all be recorded, so we can post it out if anyone wants to check it out later. So yeah, I've gotten a ton of questions about HotUtils, and I know Sarah fields a lot as well. So we were just thinking this would be a really great topic to talk a little bit about, and hopefully help you guys use those tools more effectively to they clean up a ton of things that are just kind of a mess the way CG has them in the game, and just makes your life so much easier. So it's a little bit tricky for those who don't have HotUtils. There is a little bit of setup that you have to go through, and usually you have to work with Hot Sauce to get that. For a lot of people, especially if you don't play through Google. I think if you play through Google, you can maybe, it sometimes works right, but
it worked fine for me.
Okay, I know I had tried it with like one of my Apple accounts that I moved over to an Android at one point, and it just didn't work. So I ended up having to have him set it up anyways. But it's really easy. You know, you just send Hot Sauce a DM, and the easiest way is to do it through like Facebook. You can just spin up a throwaway Facebook account and give him the login and password, and he can get you all set up. So that's kind of the tricky thing to get started, is just getting that game connection established is one of the first things you have to do after you sign up for the Patreon. So I wanted to first take a look. The HotUtils Discord. You have to be a member of it. Basically, you have to stay, like you have to join it to get hooked up, and for your account to stay connected to your Discord and everything to work. You can't leave that server at all, or your Discord connection which is whatever, like how they log in and everything, will break. So there's just some good resources on there that I wanted to just quickly show you guys. There's a whole bunch of breakdowns of different features and things that it does in here. Some of this is getting a little stale, but the announcements channel is where they share any changes, which is just kind of useful to keep an eye on. And then they've got a really great support team that you can chat with, and if you have any issues getting the game connection set up or anything going wrong, they're always really responsive in there. And their development team is just really active and building a lot of great tools through their website. And then what is the channel? These videos here in the V2 tutorials, they're way deeper dives than what we'll probably have time to do today. The guy Swerve, he's got about the deepest voice you've ever heard if you've watched any of the videos, but he does a really good job explaining a lot of the tools, and he's on their support team, and has put together a bunch of different videos on basically everything the system does. So I highly recommend taking a look at those videos as well to get up and running, if there's anything that we don't cover today that you're wondering about. Yeah, there is a lot of, I have a lot of Discord servers.
A lot of servers.
So that's their Discord. Bunch of neat stuff there. Really helpful people. And yeah, so Sarah, what do you think the kind of the most, day one in HotUtils? What are you checking out, and what's interesting to you?
So day one in HotUtils, once your account is connected, the first thing I think most people do is open up Bronziums.
Yeah.
And then the first thing that I will tell you to do, because the next thing you're going to want to do is play with your mods, is take a snapshot of your roster. So you can take a snapshot in Playground, and it takes a photo of basically what is on your roster right then and now, and you can name it. That way, once you play around with everything, if you don't like it, you can just undo everything you did and put it back to what it was. But yeah,
if you guys aren't in on HotUtils and you haven't seen this before, it's pretty awesome. It's opening 485 bronziums.
I did that on the weekend. I think I got 9,000 shard shop currency out of it.
And it's done. So then when I log into the game, it's still have a bunch of shard currency.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, so they're always adding stuff to this menu in HotUtils, but it's pretty kind of broken into similar sections to what the game is, and they've got tools for a lot of different stuff. There's a handful of guild tools that are kind of a higher subscription if you don't if your guild doesn't have that. One of the neat things that they do though is if like 4 people in the guild have just the basic $10 a month subscription, you can send again Hot Sauce a message and he'll hook up your guild with the guild tools, which are really, really awesome. They're great for planning territory battles and then territory wars, and just like managing tickets and a whole bunch of different stuff. One of the neat things that they've added recently, which it's not perfect, but it's still like the total time is a lot longer than reality, but
yeah, I was gonna say
it's a good idea of
very off.
Basically it just looks at your like from energy. It can't take any raids or territory battles or shipments or any of that into account. So it's kind of frightening looking at the total time, but it does kind of give you an idea of how far you are from different things. And this one's just nuts. The gears that you need for these
That's
main
scary.
things. There's a guild version of this tool as well, which is kind of neat for officers to kind of keep track of who's farming what and what you're working on. And that lets you basically pick one focus for each person, and it shows what kind of where they are along that path and how far out they are. Yeah, do you want to talk about the guild tools a little bit?
Yeah, so they are changing and updating some of them. I mainly look at the territory battle one. I don't know if you want to show it. Yeah. So I don't know if it'll show the stat. Okay, awesome. So this shows you basically like what HotUtils will project that you guys can accomplish in a phase. I found it to be fairly accurate because I do all of my projections off of paper, like an antique person. And it's pretty spot on. I find the one thing that I don't think it does very well is the preloading of zones. I don't know if they fixed it. I stopped using it when I noticed that preloading zones wasn't really calculating properly. But you have that. The thing that I use it mainly for is if you go to the players section of Territory Battle, you can break it down by phase. And you can see who's done combats. You can see, it doesn't show you special mission versus, so like cam mission or walk mission, for example, it doesn't show you that versus regular combats. But it shows you how much GP they've deployed, and it breaks it down based off ships or character GP. So you know at the end who has GP left that you can either tag in Discord, or you can use HotUtils to send them a DM directly on Discord. So you can just choose who you want to go to. You can type a little message in and say like, hey, go do your territory battles because it's ending, kind of thing. And they'll get a DM. So that's probably the best feature, in my opinion, of the Territory Battles tool. I have looked at the planning tool as well, and I don't think it's done. I need to double check with one of the devs.
So all the planning tool does right now is platoons. Yeah. And it's actually really, really cool. I used it for now. I didn't use it this month because we weren't really yeah, it's DSTV, and we were just hitting 31, and
Mhm.
it wasn't in danger or anything, so I didn't bother to assign platoons. But it's actually, let's see what's active. Some stuff doesn't stay active in between. So you can, the neat thing about it is you can load everything in, but then you can like throw out all the characters that you don't care about. So like a lot of times I don't assign platoons very often. So I don't want to
Mhm.
use like an echo bot or anything like that. I usually just let people free for all, because we've got a lot of people in Australia and all over the place. So just the timing of using echo bot or something is just, it doesn't work. But sometimes, like for phase 4 of Dark Side last month, we were trying to get to 32. So I really wanted to optimize, and try and, figure out who could get the most teams out. So I, assigned the key,
Mhm.
a handful of key units, and gave out all those assignments. So it's neat the way you do the assignments. Like you click on a character and then it shows you need 10 of these, and you can pick the people. It shows them all, shows all of what everyone has. You can put filters and see other units that they might have, and a bunch of stuff. And then the other thing that it does that Echo can't do is it actually looks in game and says who's done their job and which ones are full.
Yeah,
And send
and
reminder
Echo does.
DMs. You can send reminder DMs to the people who haven't done it and stuff like that. So it's
So
worked really well. I've used it twice, I think, for 2 phases. I used it in a phase of Lightside last month too. But it's pretty cool. But that's all it does
have
for
you
planning.
have you noticed with this, if so say you have to put your boss in platoon 4 and you're like, oh, I misclicked and put it in 5, does it still say you've done your job if you've put it in the wrong platoon?
Yeah, it does. It says you're good.
Okay. Yeah, because that's the biggest
And then
thing
like,
with
I don't think it
Echo
moves the other
Bot,
person
right?
around, but it like still reminds the other person if they haven't done it, the person who's you
Yeah.
killed. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It seemed to handle that pretty well.
Yeah. So when I first saw this tool, I saw planning and I thought it was literally going to let me plan my route. So when
I
I
think
saw
that's
it was
coming.
just
I think
platoons,
that's
I think
coming,
that's coming
but
too. When I saw it was just platoons, I was like, I don't need this yet. And
yeah,
then
that's basically what I
territory
did
war.
too. And then I was thinking I wanted to plan out platoons for a couple phases, and it works great for just doing like those one-off phases where you're really trying to, you got to get every last point to hit a new star or something. So it's
Well,
worked really well for those.
and that's good too, because in Echo Bot, for example, you can assign, so if you never use your bounty hunters, you can tell it to always assign you bounty hunters for platoons.
Yeah.
Except the default is that if I set it that Dunst is always going to set his bounty hunters, if I don't specify which bounty hunters, it will take all of your bounty hunters and all of your bounty hunter ships. So if you want to keep your bounty hunter ships for ship combats, I have to actually enter each character name one by one of the bounty hunters that you want to assign. So this one's kind of nice because you can just do the individual tune. You know what I mean?
TW, there's a ton of stuff we can do for TW. A lot of it's like super intensive, and it's just the crazy TW guilds that do it. But like, I like this thing that tells me how terrible we're doing on efficiency. We were like 170 GLs to 100 this last territory war, but basically tells you where your efficiency is, and like shows you where you're losing banners attacking, and where your most effective defenses, and stuff like that. So that's why the history of all your territory wars, and I think there's a lot more coming for TW.
Yeah, they're actually making so there's a bunch coming in HotUtils, but one of the things that they're doing is squad management. So you're going to be able to import your squads from game. You're going to be able to save squads in here. You can tweak your squads individually, but you can also tweak your squads as a guild leader and guild officer for the entire guild. And one of the big things that's coming is you can actually set your territory war defense, and they're doing this individually as well. So you'll be able to do this for Grand Arena. You can set your defense from HotUtils. So in territory war, as an officer, you'd be able to go in, and if you're going to have a CLS wall, you can deploy a CLS wall. based off who's joined your territory war.
Yeah.
It's not live yet, but it's coming. So
there's some ticket stuff, you know, it's great for tracking tickets and just kind of seeing how you're doing with tickets and stuff like that. Frozen. Can you hear me now? My internet connection is unstable.
It's gonna do it for GA as well. You back?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's got a neat view of tickets, shows like average tickets and lifetime tickets and everything. It's a good way to see if, you know, somebody's missing a bunch in a row, in addition to the in-game ticket stuff. This event stuff is really neat. You can set up reminders for people to join raids, you know, 5 minutes before the raid's going to go live. You can have it send a DM. You can have it remind people to join territory war, whatever kind of reminders you want to set up. And yeah, that's most of the guild stuff. We really wanted to spend most of the time here in mods. Are there any questions? You can either unmute or throw them in chat on any of the guild or other sections that we looked at so far.
No questions.
Oh, this is one other one that's pretty neat, is the tests. And these are cool. And we're working on getting it set up so that the guilds in the Hive can share tests with each other. I've got to get the rest of the guilds entered in, but we've got a few of them set up so far. So like we've got our, I've got this Hive cam readiness test that I set up. So I can run a test and, you know, basically you set up the different requirements and you can get really in depth with, you know, certain mod requirements and stuff like that. Like the mod requirements don't work so much for cam, but there are a lot of guilds use them for territory wars where they want, you know, all of their CLSs modded, you know, at 300 speed or whatever. You can use tests to see if the guild all matches their mods. But this is basically kind of a simple screen that I set up to just kind of see where people are with their cam teams. So I can see really easily, you know, who has what parts to what levels for cam, or, you know, really anything that I have set up. I also use it to plan like teams for the
Challenge pit.
Like some of those, like in Dark Side Phase 4, and when I was talking about how I assign out the platoons, I did that in conjunction with tests. So I was seeing, okay, this guy has C, so he can afford to donate his Sith Empire kind of thing. Those are the most places I use tests, but they're pretty neat for just kind of seeing where people are with a squad or modding or any of that stuff. You can see any, basically any unit. You can see everybody's progress on that unit. So how many Kenobis do you have and what are their speeds and all that stuff. And then there's also just this guild overview is pretty nifty. Just shows a lot of stuff about, you know, what are mod scores, you know, how many mods at different speeds they have, just a bunch of different in-depth stuff for kind of managing your guild and seeing where they are. But for most people, you know, I really think most of the value of the tool is in mods, and the mod tools that it just gives you can just give you such a leap ahead of anybody else mod wise. So you talked a little bit about loadouts, Sarah. What do you think? How do you set up your loadouts? I've got a million of them. I've got like 50 loadouts set up.
So I have, so the filter at the top, you basically can break it down. Yeah, so I have it set up as Grand Ivory. I have a challenge pit tab, and then I have a light side territory battle and a dark side territory battle tab. And then I just find that's a lot easier so that you're not looking at all of them all at once.
Yeah.
So if you were to go to like your light side TV, it's going to filter out all of this stuff. And then I do actually, I name them the same way you do. So I'll name it by the phase and what the team is, like where I'm using it. So I'll even go, so for example, like Jedi Knight Luke, I would go phase 1, bottom, Jedi Knight Luke. So I know exactly where I'm using it. The big thing to keep in mind with the modding in HotUtils is if you're doing, so say, let's use your Jedi Knight Luke team as an example. So you can click the picture to get a preview of who's in there.
It's really useful, like when you're throwing a loadout in and you're like, oh, I forgot who's in this team that I run from last month for territory battle. I can see who I actually just put mods on.
It's so useful. So let's say you had to use gas elsewhere, for example, and you're like, oh, I'll use shock here. So you're going to build a separate loadout with shock. If you call it P1 Jedi Knight Luke again, it will overwrite the one that you have there. And so you always want to name them something slightly different. So whenever I'm doing something like that, I'll do P1 Jedi Knight Luke with shock kind of thing, just so I can keep it 2 separate loadouts. I still know where I'm using them and I'm not overwriting one by accident. Would it be useful for everyone if they created a mod loadout? Yes, 100%. So I was saying earlier, the first thing I do in here is I take a snapshot of my roster, which you can do in Playground, you can do it here. And
before you do anything with mods and HotUtils, this is the first thing you should do. Is call it default, call it snapshot, whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
And there's kind of 2 different ways you can set up a loadout. You can have this use all characters in loadout, or you can just select the characters you want to include. For the snapshot, just use all the characters in your loadout. Day 1, you sign up for HotUtils, do this first. So I'll call it snapshot. I'm going to say use all characters in loadout. Do I want to include units that don't have mods? And however you want to set that up. It doesn't make much of a difference if they don't have mods already. So that creates a new loadout. I'll spin for a second, and then it's going to pop me into, basically this moves us from the loadouts tab into, oh, it doesn't, never mind. So that loadout is going to be, where's it going to be?
Did you give it a category or whatever?
No, I didn't. Yeah, so there it is. It'll highlight whatever. So an important thing to keep in mind with HotUtils is this message up here. It says data fetched 18 minutes ago. And that's the last time it looked at your game. So when you're looking at the loadout screen, you'll notice like this one is highlighted blue and this one is highlighted blue. And this one down here is highlighted blue. Basically, that means that loadout's active. The mods that you have the last time that HotUtils logged into your account and checked your mods matched what that loadout is. So you can have multiple ones active. They can be, exactly the same, or they can be like this one has more units in it, but they're both active. This one down here only has 1 unit, but it's, it's kind of a subset of that other loadout. So it's kind of just a good way to keep your bearings.
And on that note, if you change anything in game, so if you like move mods around, do all this kind of stuff, you come in here and you refresh, none of them will be blue. And so it knows you don't have any of these loadouts applied, and you can just apply whatever you want and fix everything that you did in game. So if you're in there trying to do, I don't know, whatever tier of a legendary unlock, if you're doing the gas event or whatever, and you're messing around with your mods trying to get it, you're fine. Just come back here and equip your snapshot.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually, so from this loadout page, there's, basically each of the loadouts has 5 buttons.
Mhm.
There's load, which pushes it into the game. There's edit, which we'll do in a second, which takes you over to playground. And then there's update. So that's something like Sarah was saying, if you're tweaking a loadout in game or something like that, which I'll do sometimes if I'm,
Mhm.
Trying to be an assault battle or something and playing around with different mod setups, or doing challenge pit runs and just kind of fine tuning stuff. And I don't want to have to log out of the game and log back in to make a change. I'll tweak stuff in game for a loadout, but then I want to save that later. I don't want it to be a new loadout. I want it to be the same loadout I equipped. This update button will do that. So this update button updates that loadout to whatever you have currently in game.
But you want
You
to,
might need to refresh first.
I was just going to say, because we've had it happen where some of us have hit the update button and then it didn't save it because we didn't refresh beforehand.
Yeah, you need to refresh first and then you hit update. So it'll be like this one's an old one that I can use. So this one's not blue right now. So this one's not equipped and it would cost me 600,000 to equip it. So I can hit this update. It's going to give me the warnings and stuff of everything it's going to do. And then I'll say, yeah, go ahead and update it. And then now this one's going to be blue too. And yes, Scott, that's correct.
And I just want to say, I want to clarify, Scott, because you're saying you wish you could send the loadouts. Are you saying you wish you could send the loadouts to another player? Because you can do that in HotUtils. I've done it before.
Like you have all these built, like the ones for like the territory battles, phase you hit them in, and you can share those loadouts, so like at least the character builds.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can share a specific loadout. I'll need to go in and check. But you can go into the playground and you can open an allies roster and you can build a loadout for someone.
Yes, I do that a lot. I do that a lot for my guild, like for cam loadouts.
Yeah.
Is basically I'll build cam loadouts for people.
It will not.
No, it won't let you assign it. I'm not high enough on my mods to. It'll have a red thing here.
It'll tell you.
Says you need to free up n number of spaces to equip this.
Yeah, so like for me, when I'm doing territory battles, I just go through my combat missions. Once I get to about the 4th one, I've swapped so many mods around that I have so many loose ones that it will tell me I can't swap. It tells you to free up space. So yeah, there it is. If you go back, sorry, at the bottom, when you're hitting save as, if you toggle that share with guild, that pushes it. And then in your HotUtils, in your loadouts, you'll have a guild loadout section and it'll be there.
The weird thing is, like, you can't just directly use it because it's tied to the actual mod IDs. So you can like look through it, but you've got to basically make your own version of it because your mods are different.
Yeah.
But so I can also I can make a loadout for you. There's 2 ways I can do it. From the guild tab, basically you can go in, and there's another way to get into it as well. There's also a way you can give access to somebody to your HotUtils account, and they would just have it like there's a switcher here where you can switch accounts and they can log in and do stuff. There's like 2 different levels of access that you can give, and they can create loadouts for you and set up filters and mark mods for you to slice or level, things like that. If you want to, if there's somebody that knows mods in your guild and is willing to spend that time for you, or there's paid people that do it too. And the neat thing there is you used to have to like give them access to your whole account to do that. Now you can kind of have a little bit of control over that and just give them access to your HotUtils account. And there's like a bunch of safeguards as far as what they can do, and they can't sell mods, and you can set up the access however you want. So this is I don't know why it's being so slow here. Basically from this list, you can browse the mods of any of your guild members and basically get into their playground. You don't get to see their mods that aren't equipped. So like if I run into this building cam loadouts, you know, I have to remind people, put all your creative avoidance arrows on before I start doing this so that I can see them.
Yeah, I find that I've always done it through the playground. But I do it for Cam too. And I always name them Sarah Cam, because then you know that I built it and it's not one that you've built and you can compare. But it always shows up in guild loadout there.
Yeah.
And
so when you create one for somebody, it shows up in their guild loadouts tab and they have to copy it into their own tab. But you can also, like, if they don't have HotUtils, you can create it with their mods and just give them that image that we showed you of a single loadout. And the neat thing with that is it shows you where each of the mods is coming from. So it's really easy for them to equip it, set it up, and then also put the mods back where they belong. I mean, not as easy as if they had HotUtils, but.
Yeah, I actually think you don't even need to save it in the guild loadout now. You don't even need to save it to yourself. You can just equip from there.
Okay.
Yeah, they updated it. So assuming you
have
HotUtils.
Tell us about Playground.
Okay, so Playground, this is probably my favorite thing. So if you just go to the Playground, it's a little bit overwhelming because it's your entire roster. I like to do it through specific squads. So if I know that I want to tweak like a light side territory battle combat squad or my arena squad or whatever. So pick anything, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so you've got your Playground here. That's your mods that are for that loadout for that team. You can scroll down, you can see all of their stats. But if you click on a mod, so say you wanted to remod whoever, you can now go through all of your mods. You can go to that little funnel cup thing by the sort by, and you can put in any secondaries you want, primaries, what kind of mod sets you want, what you're looking for. And then you can sort by is like when you're sorting by in game. So you can sort however which way you want.
It defaults to like something a little bit more intelligent than in game. Like it defaults to basically a HotUtils default for that character. So it's actually going to surface pretty good mods for that person.
Yeah. So
the default one.
And the reason why I like this is you can tweak as much as you want. So once you start switching an arrow, it will show you on the left what that switch will do to all of your stats. To that character. So you can switch your entire mod set on a character. You don't have to save it. You can just switch everything around. And then you could circle, you can literally switch all of them. It tells you who you're pulling it from. Obviously, because we are using HotUtils. This is the one great thing about HotUtils versus Grand Ivory. If you've used Grand Ivory, you can see all of your unequipped. Did it kick you out? All right, so if I'm not going to tell you to, but if you hit the little check mark, it marks it as saved. And then you can go back and save your loadout, save your Playground, and it saves that whole mod setting for everything that you've tweaked once you're done. And then you can load it in game if you wanted to.
So something else that is cool in here that I just want to show real quick is this little weird load set button. Is pretty cool. It's got 4 different settings that you can do. If you want to just see what's the absolute fastest I can get on this character right now, it defaults to this. It's got these 2 settings here. It defaults to this ignore completed on others. So remember, we're working on a set loadout, and there's that completed checkbox. So I'm going through building a squad out. You know, if I've checked somebody off, it's not going to steal mods from them unless I check this. But if I check this, and say, I want to find my fastest set for CLS. This is it, and it'll load it. This is just fastest I can do with all my mods. If I turn that off, that's fastest I can do with the mods I already have equipped to this squad. So, if you're going through a squad. It also has an auto, which like I guess it uses like top guilds. I'm not sure exactly how they have their auto set up, but it's basically the modding that other people are using for this character. And I think that there is some kind of like what people in the big guilds that use HotUtils are using on their characters kind of logic to it from the way Swerve explained it. You can also pull from in-game any characters that are currently equipped in game, or you can pull from any other loadout. I use this quite a bit actually. I'll go through to one of my other loadouts and I'm like, oh, I know that, so I was playing with this the other day. I was thinking when they nerfed gas, I was thinking, oh, I wonder if Grandmaster Yoda will work better on my teams like gas now. It didn't work better, but basically I copied my gas mod so we would try and hit hard and stuff like that, because they kind of have similar stats they want if you're trying to make them both hit hard. So I just went in and found from my default my gas mods, so you can pick any loadout and then any unit. And if I want to give him Wedges mods, it pulls up Wedges loadout, so I can basically copy a loadout from somebody else and put it onto whoever I'm working on.
So they are also making their own, it's kind of like their own version of Grand Ivory, basically. So you're going to be able to tweak all of your templates and modding in here without going through Grand Ivory in general. I haven't done it through the playground in particularly, but I've done it in the swap menu. You can actually click on the character and you can weight your stats, very similar to Grand Ivory, which is awesome. So this part of modding, right now, all of the characters have like a default set to them. So if you click on any mod, it will pull up all of the characters that it thinks is the best case to swap that mod for. So it's telling you, these are the best characters to swap. And when you click on them, on their little icon, you can change all of this weighting here. So if you are modding for a very specific reason, you're able to change all of the, it's literally like a mini version of Grand Ivory. They haven't flushed this out entirely. I'm told that they're hoping to have it in place before territory battle, light side territory battle. And they're going to be importing a bunch of templates for it as well. So
this is really neat for like when you get a new mod and you want to work it into your normal mod set. This is a really great way to, or even if you're just trying to make sure like, I don't want to have any gold mods that I'm not using. I've invested so much in that. I want to make sure I'm using all my gold mods, or I'm using all my 15 speed or higher mods because I want to pad my mod score a little bit. I can go through here and see, is there any mods that like, this looks like it should be a pretty good mod and should be on somebody. And I can see, oh, this would actually upgrade Treya quite a bit. Like I don't see any downside to using this mod over what she has on. So I'm going to go ahead and give that to her. So then now I have the shopping cart with one mod in it. So I'm going to say, click that and then let me save. So this is basically confirming all the changes I'm making through swaps. So swaps just a really great way to make quick, simple changes to a loadout without going into playground and reloading the whole thing. If you hit a great slice on a mod and want to make sure you're using it right away, this is a great way to do it. So the way it works is you're just going to confirm changes. You can put this into a new loadout, based on, and select all the characters. So if you don't do this, use all characters in loadout, you basically get to select the characters you're going to include. But I'm just going to replace my existing default loadout. And then you can also select push to game, which I'll go ahead and do. So that's going to create the loadout, save it. It's going to overwrite my old loadout with just that one mod changed, and it's going to push that change out to the game.
This is really good for like on days, assault battle days, when we get all those mods. You can slice them, and then if you get any that are good, you just swap them in real quick to your roster.
Yep.
Especially if you don't know, like we get a lot of like screenshots of mods in our guild chat of like, who should this mod go on once you've sliced it? And it's like, well, who needs it? Like, who in your roster needs it? That's the easiest way to tell right there, is go select mod, and it tells you where your weak points are.
Yeah, it's going to tell you who it thinks that mod could make better. I don't know why I have all these old mods I'm not using, but anyways. Anything else on Playground and Swap?
Not overly. I think that's pretty much like the basis of what most people would use it for. Do you want to dive into like the actual mod tool, the management tool? Yeah. Or do you want to look at Grand Ivory?
We mentioned Grand Ivory. Grand Ivory, it's really neat. It does some really cool stuff, and this is on my alt. It's a great way to just get a baseline. And, you know, if you're coming in day one to the HotUtils world, it's a great way to just go in and get kind of rework your roster and get, you know, mods that make sense on stuff, and make sure you're using all your mods efficiently. Basically, the gist of it, I'm not going to go into a huge tutorial. You can put your stuff over here. There is a button here that'll auto generate a list that basically, like, it puts your arena squad at the top, and then like everything else is kind of based on some algorithm of what the most valuable units on your roster are. And you can set all these different stats for each stat weights for everything. And then basically it's going to say optimize my mods. It's going to come up with a whole mod set for your entire roster. It's a great way to quickly, you know, make sure you're using all your best mods, and have, you know, kind of the bottom end of your roster modded in a way that makes sense. I've got some crazy stuff set. One neat thing, and actually I will show you what I had set there. This is something that a lot of people don't know about about Grand Ivory. When you're setting up your list here, you can click, you see this 6 here? So I can click on this, and I can say this guy should have a 6-dot mod, should have 6-dot mods wherever possible, because he's a pilot. Because the 6-dot mods are really important for pilots, because they give you more speed. So I can pick the characters that I want to overly value. Like, it doesn't matter, you know, their stats are just going to go with their weights and their ranking and everything. But I really want to give this guy 6-dot mods if I can. So I'll set those to my pilots usually. And then, yeah, so that's a neat thing to set, you know, at least for your main couple fleets that you use. If you do a Grand Ivory, go through and click that to 6 for all your pilots. But anyways, it optimizes them all, uses this whole scoring system for each mod based on your weights. And then it's going to tell you, you know, we think you should spend 4 million credits to move all these mods. You can create a new HotUtils mod profile, which that basically, again, has a category and profile name that you would have if you were setting it up in HotUtils. Then you'll see them show up in there, or you can just move them directly in game.
And you can change, when you're creating a new mod profile, you can change that category. The default is Grand Ivory will show up, but you can change it. So if you're building something for the challenge pit raid, you can change it so that it goes to the right spot in your HotUtils.
Yeah, I don't honestly use Grand Ivory that often, but it is a good tool for quickly improving your mods if you haven't spent a lot of time on them and you're not really anal about setting up all your teams manually. It gets you a good baseline. So management, I think this is a place that I'm kind of working through, kind of developing for myself a set of filters, and probably will try and get them pushed to be public filters at some point. But I've kind of got a process I've been working on with some research that Darth Kermit's been doing on his server, and then some just different conversations I've heard about mods. I think there was a good H&N or Under the Hollow Table episode where they were talking to one of the big whales about his process. So I've kind of been working on my process for mods, and have been building out some filters for how to really quickly do the just kind of back end side of mod farming. So what I'm doing now is I'm spending all of my crystals and refreshes, like I'm doing the 50 crystal refreshes every day on both accounts, and just putting them all into challenges, mostly for speed set, but a few other sets sprinkled in there. And then about once a week, I come in here to HotUtils, and just I've got these new filters that I set up. I was using some public filters, but I'm trying to develop these to a point where I can they'll be effective as public filters. So this is what my mod process is. It's, you know, it's not perfect yet, but I think it's helpful to people. So first I just look for mods that aren't any good to anybody. So it's basically the primaries I don't care about. Protection crosses, and you know, this is also going to sell less than 5 dot mods. We'll sell all my less than 5 dot mods. And then I'm looking at, I don't care about defense on this stuff, accuracy arrows, all that stuff. We're going to sell all that. So that's the first step that I do, is just quickly, you know, set a filter, and you can sell some mods out and clear some space. I've got all these mods that are still incomplete. We'll go to the next step, and I'm leveling all my gray mods up to 6. So this is a desired mods filter. And I was doing a lot of this with, there's the filters over on the left, which are just like a checkbox. It's saved, it's always there and ready to go. And then you also have over on the right side, you have the quick filter, which I'll show you in a second. I'm going to select all these that have decent primaries and are gray. I'm going to upgrade them a single tier. This is basically looking for, they're less than level 6. They haven't rolled speed yet. I'm going to level them to 6 until they roll speed. So that's going to take a second.
So when you're doing this, 'cause
Leveling in 4 months.
I haven't built my own filters. I usually either use the public ones, or I just search on the right-hand side, like you were saying. When you're building your own filters, do you have to import, like if you don't want a defense cross, for example, or defense triangle?
So that's kind of why I have it
all
broken
of
up into separate steps. I have that first filter, and I'll show you how that filter's set up. Is like I get rid of the defense crosses that I don't want, right? So there's 3 different types of filters in the permanent one. There's garbage filters, there's desired filters, and there's slicing filters. And they're kind of denoted by the S, D, or G. So that first one that I hit, I basically look for arrows, and I don't want accuracy or defense.
Okay,
arrows.
so you are setting all of that though yourself.
Yeah, so I set those up. Like I'm trying to get these to, I need to do a little bit more refinement, but I will probably make these public filters at some point that people can copy. And basically, you know, I used to do that in this quick filters. I would just kind of go through these steps, clicking all the different boxes, but I'm trying to get it to a point where it's just clicking this one checkbox to do each step. Once you've done something to a mod, it brings it up to this workbench area, which is sometimes useful, but mostly it annoys me. But it's the only way to see sometimes, like if the mod isn't in the filter anymore, it's the only way to see what happened to the mod that you sliced. So it makes sense. So we'll see. The one thing that this filter does, like after I take it up one step, it takes all of the mods that rolled any speed at all out of what I'm doing here, and I'll handle them later. So if any of them rolled speed, they're not going to be selected anymore. I'm going to bump these up a step. You'll see the price is going up each time. It flashes a warning and says you're going to spend a bunch of credits to do this. Are you sure you want to do it? Basically, anytime you're spending credits or selling mods, it's going to give
I
you a
will
confirmation
say
box.
HotUtils is a very like, keep an eye on that because you can
Oh, yeah.
spend so many credits so fast.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's
especially
one thing a lot of
swapping
people
mods
don't
around. But that is like one point with like, I had somebody in my guild who was saying, it's way too expensive to swap. They had HotUtils. It would cost me millions and millions of credits, 40 million credits to swap mods for TB. They
Oh,
were saying they didn't want to swap TB, but we talked about how you can have a loadout that's for your entire roster or just
yeah,
your team. That's why it's really important to have just single team loadouts, because then it's only going to cost you a few
100,000.
100,000 for each of them. So that's the first couple steps that level them up to 6, and then we're not going to go through all these because they're taking a while. But then I'm looking at specific high value grays. So that's I'm valuing right side mods basically higher if they have primaries that I really care about. So I'm going to give them more chances to roll speed. I'm going to take them all the way up to 12. So we can just do that and upgrade those to 12. No. See, this is where that workbench really gets you, because it keeps all the workbench mods selected, even though I just wanted these. So I'm going to upgrade those to 12. And that's gonna go in. And this is basically, we've processed 90 mods here, leveled them. We sold like 50 mods, just in a few minutes. This is where the HotUtils really saves you a lot of time, and gets you to a point where you can always be farming mods and always be improving your mod library. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to identify these mods that rolled basically 4 or 5 speed, and I'm going to take them to max level, and that one is going to cost a lot. So then these will eventually get sliced. What's that?
I was gonna say this right here though, like doing all of this within seconds.
Like I remember I
makes
hated
it
doing
worth it.
this before HotUtils. I would say, oh, I've got to do mods. It's going to take me, put a movie on and just play with mods for a couple hours.
Yeah.
I don't have the slicing mask to do this whole process right now, but so I would slice those to green normally.
I also feel like part of like the biggest hindrance to like moving mods around in game is you having to like put them back and like remember which triangle this came, like who had this triangle and all that kind of stuff. And this just makes it so much easier. You don't have to remember it. You just put it all back, which makes you more inclined to, swap mods for a raid, swap mods for territory battle. You can build a mod loadout specifically for Grand Arena or Territory War, equip it, join, and then you can swap it back around afterwards. Like, it's so much easier. And
so then I'm selling anything that didn't roll 4 or 5 speed. And that's going to get me, it doesn't actually tell you how many credits it gives you, but that's going to give me a decent amount of credits back. And then basically I'm looking through, and this is one where I've got to do 2 of them. So I've got another set of desired ones. One of the neat things it can do is like with these colored mods, because you don't have to level them all the way to 12 to see all the stats. It has like an intelligent upgrade incomplete to expose all. So that's going to level your golds to, it's not going to level your golds.
Yeah.
It's going to level your purples to
3,
and your blues to 6, and your greens to 9, and your grays to 12. So that's just going to show you which mods have speed on them really quickly without, having to go through and select them, each color at a time and level it. So then basically the next step is I'm going to sell anything that doesn't have speed. And then it doesn't have, yeah, I'm going to sell anything that doesn't have speed, which is down here. All these ones didn't roll any speed. I want to, like, I'm even keeping 3 speed if I rolled it here on these colored ones, because I'll give them, you know, it's worth just leveling them up to 12 to see if that 3 rolls a 6 on top of it, because then it's a decent mod. So that's the next step. And then the next step is we're going to level everything that's left to level 12 in my desired filter, which the pool is getting smaller and
I
smaller.
was going to say, you're
Time
down
we
to 11.
But this is why I'm doing it this way, because I saved, you know, leveling all those mods, but I'm actually pulling out a lot of good mods here. And we'll see what they do. You know, 600,000 credits to level these to 12 isn't bad.
No. And then you'll sell whichever ones.
And we had a speed there, it looks like. We had a couple of good ones.
Yeah. So you can see that they're kind of like a different color. Like they're like a ready.
Yeah, the ones that you had selected, they stay selected.
Yeah.
And then the other thing it does here is, like, if something's rolled, you know, like this is rolled tenacity twice. So it, you know, it's rolling this a lot. It's going to highlight the stat that's doing well there. And then it's also got these percentages here, which show you how well that mod is rolling within the range. And you can even build filters based on those percentages and do some pretty neat stuff with those. The next thing, you know, we're basically getting to the point where we don't have too much left. I want to clear my workbench because I don't want to sell everything in my workbench again. So I've got these ones. Basically, I'm looking for at least 9 speed if I'm going to slice it. Everything else I'm going to get rid of. And if it's like purple, I want even a little bit higher speed than that. I do have this set up so that it's looking for offense as well too, because I think offense mods are kind of underrated, offense percentage mods. So it gives it a little bit more leeway on speed if it has a good offense percent roll. And then my last step is just, these are the ones that are going to get leveled and sliced when I have slicing mats. So that's the mod farming process that I use. You know, it took probably 10 minutes to go through a week's mods, you know, and see where they get. Slicing, my slicing filter is probably the most complex of all these filters. There's a lot of different conditions that I have here. So I'm looking for basically however many speed rolls it has. Like if it has 2 speed rolls, I want it to be at least 8 speed. But if it has 3 speed rolls already and it's blue, then it needs to be 11 speed kind of thing. And this is coming from some research that they did on Darth Kermit's server about they set up a whole
I think I've seen
simulator
floating around.
that was going through and, you know, trying to find the best way to get 20 plus speed mods basically. So I've got basically each level of the mods in here for kind of what the criteria is. Then I also added on these offense criteria. So normally I would want 9 speed on a green, but if it has 0.95 offense on a green, that's a really good offense roll. So I'm going to keep that even if it doesn't have speed on it, kind of thing. I think it has to have speed. But anyways, you know, so then a blue, you know, if it has 1.3 offense and I'd already sold stuff that didn't have speed, so it would have some speed on it. And then you know, with the purple, I need to have at least 1.6, and then I'll let basically kind of any speed go through if they have that amount of offense on them. So
I wanted to show too, like you've got all of your mods selected right now from that filter, and it's telling you at the bottom that some of those mods are used in your game loadout right now. So it's like
Yeah.
basically giving you a warning. If you sell these, you've got some of them equipped.
You can't sell any mod that's equipped. You can't sell any mod that's in a loadout in game. You can, one thing that I did, I don't know if you noticed when I was selling one of these sell steps, I had some equipped mods that were there that it wanted me to sell. So if it has, like, if there's equipped mods in your sell group that you don't want, like, you can't sell them because they're equipped and it's like they're just equipped on junk characters anyways. This toggle is useful there because you can have it basically hide the equipped mods and then it'll select everything that's not equipped without having to go through and pick off the ones that have the little logo. You can't do that with the in-game loadouts though, so that's a little annoying. You do have to go through and unselect the loadout ones, but this little icon means it's in an in-game loadout.
Yeah. Just delete them.
At some point, I need to just go through and get rid of all my in-game loadouts because they just get in the way at this point.
Don't need them anymore.
Yeah, that's how I do that. You can also slice with this. It tells you basically you can see all your slicing materials over here, and then it also tells you like I can do 3 slices from E to D, 5 from D to C. One thing to watch here though is like a lot of the slices they share a mat. So you know if it says I can do 3 from E to D and 5 from D to C, if I go and do those 3 from E to D, I won't be able to do 5 from D to C anymore.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
and then
they share some.
So I know you have like your own filters. I think if people don't want to do that, like you can just go in, find a public filter and use that for your mod. Like you don't have to.
So they have all these public filters that a lot of them are really good. I was using these for a long time. It basically sorts them by basically the number of likes they get. So it's going to put the most useful according to the community mods up at the top. I mean, Swerve, he's on the HotUtils team and he does modding for people professionally, or not professionally, but he does paid mod services.
Yeah.
Athian is the leader of one of the major whale guilds. You know, so a lot of these top ones are, I mean, there's Hot Sauce, are well-known guys. There's an Arnold one who are putting out their
Fatal
filters.
So Fatal is working with them right now to import a bunch of mod templates for when they do get their own little version of Grand Ivory, for lack of a bit, of an optimizer, basically. So he's the one that's going to be working with them to do that.
So that's the management. The playground we looked at. This is kind of neat. If you're just trying to kind of look and see how you are for different types of mods, it's kind of hard. There's really no other way to see, like if I want to see what did my speed sets look like. So I've got you know, you can basically, it shows you your stats, you know, which is the same thing you get from running rate or the DSR, PRME, or any of those things that tell you how many of each mod you have. This will include unequipped mods in this list here. But then you can also filter this down. So my crit damage mods, you know, I've got one that's 25 plus and they're really not great. You know, where like my offense, I've gotten really lucky with offense set mods, but I can kind of see, you know, or if I want to look at, you know, arrows, how am I doing on crit avoidance arrows? So, you know, I've got plenty of them. But it's basically the same filter that you have on the playground for mods, where you can set up any kind of filtering. You can also do groupings here. So then it can it just does all the different primaries, kind of where are you, or like by slot, it can show you just kind of a quick to scroll through list. Kind of just easy way to keep track of where you are with mods and find weak spots that you maybe need to work on. You know, if you were trying to come up with a farming strategy or decide, you know, which ones do I want to, what kind of mods do I want to push further in, you know, as grays, you know, do I want to just, you know, most of them you may just level to 6, but, you know, I really want to work on tenacity crosses. So I'm going to level every tenacity cross I get, kind of thing. So you can kind of see where you are with different groupings, and these groupings are cumulative, so you can kind of see different combinations of stuff. So
Awesome.
is there a function to identify poor mods and unequip through the tools?
I don't know if it would unequip.
There's not a great way to, and this has been talked about on the HotUtils Discord, to just like pull mods off. And like one of the weird things with pulling mods off is like you've got that limited inventory, which the mods that are equipped don't count against. So you can't just demod your whole roster and start fresh. But like what I would do is I would just start with Grand Ivory. And you can actually use Grand Ivory without HotUtils, and it'll give you this list of this mod needs to come from this guy needs to come from this guy, you know, to move around. You know, you'll spend a day remodeling your whole roster instead of the 5 minutes with HotUtils. But I would do a Grand Ivory loadout for your whole roster and just kind of start with that. And it's going to put mods that make sense on everything. And it's going to take mods that don't make sense off. So that's where I would start. But I would start by snapshotting your current loadout, then do a Grand Ivory loadout.
And compare.
And then, yeah.
The only thing I can think of that would equip it would be the swap, but you're going in one by one.
Yeah.
So if you know that, like, I don't know, your Java engineer has crap mods on him, and you want to put good mods.
I mean, and you can go in and you can do a empty loadout. And then you could say that, like, I think at one point I had a loadout for when my arena sharp wanted me to demod or whatever.
Right.
You know, would click it and it would demod me. You can set up an empty loadout, but again, it's going through and manually unequipping everything.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the gripe you hear from Grand Ivory. You know, if you don't like what it gives you, you can tweak the weights of the stats. The other thing you can do is you can do, if you've got, so I do this back when I needed to use, you know, the gas chewy cheese to climb an arena. I had my, you know, my gas and Chewy and Han and everybody. And I would go through, and I was using Grand Ivory a lot more than is, you can go in and you're like, I've got this guy modded the way I want him. So I'm just going to click this lock button here. So I've got Kylo Ren, I've got SLK modded the way I want him. I've got my arena team set up, and I'm just going to go through and click those locks, then put everybody else in, and then optimize even basically the stuff you don't care about, and have it just, you know, run with the defaults. The defaults in Grand Ivory are pretty good for the most part. There's a lot of tweaking you can do, but if you want to just get rid of all that old stuff, and I think you can also,
you can change the threshold on your threshold to change mods. You can actually bring that into the negatives.
The other thing you can do is, so if you just want to kind of, you know, if you've got like 20 teams that you don't want it to touch, or, you know, 10 teams you don't want to touch, and you just want to use Grand Ivory on the low end of your roster, you could say, you know, basically you pick the stuff that you want to put in, and you probably have to set them manually. And then you can click this here that's lock all unselected characters. And that's going to lock everything that you didn't put over into the right. So just put everything in there, you know, that you aren't super invested in the mods that you have on for, and then lock everything else and run Grand Ivory. And that'll, you know, it's not gonna take mods from anybody that's locked.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I was gonna say, if you're doing your whole roster, sometimes it's easier to break it up into chunks and do like your arena squad first, lock that squad in Grand Ivory, and then do your next squad, lock that squad as well, and you can kind of just move on in chunks instead of just looking at your whole roster in one shot, because then it's overwhelming.
And honestly, if you're going to spend much time in Grand Ivory, I wouldn't load it in this iframe that HotUtils
No,
loads in.
I
Just
always
go to their
pop it
website.
out. I always pop it out in a new tab. It's just easier. Yeah.
So, any other questions, anybody? I don't think we had much else. Do you have anything else you wanted to?
No, I was good. The only other thing I was going to say, it's not mod related, is Conquest. You can.
Oh yeah, the Conquest stuff is
Which
cool.
we can't even demo because
Can't even
it's
demo.
on. But you can equip your discs. You can see your discs. You can swap your discs. It's a way better view than what's in game, because what's in game sucks.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it will.
Yeah. I don't think it'll load.
I don't think it'll load. It'll show you all of your. It shows you your energy. Grand Ivory is free in general. Sorry to interrupt my thought. So Grand Ivory is free in general. If you have HotUtils, you can use it in conjunction with HotUtils, and it will move your mods based off the Grand Ivory selection. If you don't have HotUtils, it'll still show you your selection. It will only show you mods that you have equipped, and you have to do everything manually. So if you have HotUtils, it'll show you your mods that you don't have equipped as well. It'll take that into account. And then you can just click a button and it moves everything. But what I was going to say for Conquest is it'll show you your discs. It shows you, I think it shows you, if I remember correctly, where you are on like the reward bar system, how many key cards you've gotten. But it shows you which discs you've got equipped. And then it shows you all of your unequipped discs, what the cost or how many slots it will take up for Conquest. And it actually tells you what the disc does, and then you can just swap them, click a button, it swaps them all in game, or however many you want to swap, and then go into Conquest and keep going. It's a much easier way to look at Conquest discs than what is actually there.
Yeah, and it has, and that's also hooked up to the bot. You can get, I'm going to see if I can find
The Hotbot.
Yeah, in Hotbot, there's a Conquest. Like a Conquest visual that'll do. That'll show you basically show all your discs and where you are, and that's kind of basically what the website has.
I think the one other thing we didn't mention is when you're in the HotUtils website and you're refreshing, it does break your game connection. So you don't want to do it if you're in the middle of like a raid battle and you put your phone down and you're like, oh, I want to do all of this stuff. It'll break your connection to the game, and it makes you reload the game. So just something to keep.
Yes, this is basically all the stuff that the Conquest thing has. So it shows you like what feats. And the neat thing that they just added for this Conquest that just got canceled is you can like actually check box off the feats you want to go for, to like plan your way to the box. They just added that.
Oh, so that's new. That's cool.
Yeah, so it shows you what discs you have. It lets you like actually equip the discs with an interface that actually makes sense. It also shows you your stamina. Is neat for, especially if you run two accounts. Like I can use this to check my stamina on my other account and see if like, or it also, I think it shows your energy too. See if I'm losing energy and need to go log in. So it's pretty cool. We'll save this, probably get a link out sometime tomorrow for it. And thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Um,
I hope that was helpful.
and yeah,
I think the one thing is if you don't have HotUtils, you can't see how it works without getting HotUtils. So
I know I appreciate it. Thank you.
no problem.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you.
all right. Well, that's all we have for tonight. Talk to you guys soon.